Okay, we're live.
Cool.
So super excited to be here. My name's Kaylin and I run 4 schools, and I'm really, really happy to be introducing my community to my sister. This is Chelsea. You want to say hi?
Hi.
So Chelsea and I have just been having conversations over the past few weeks, just in our, catch up family time. And as we were talking, we just thought, you know what, we kind of have a lot in common in the work that we're doing right now, and just some of the things that we're talking and thinking about. So why don't we film one of these conversations and share it with other people in case it interests them and maybe sparks some questions for them as well. So again, yeah, super happy to have you here, Chelsea. Thank you for making the time. I know this is a busy weekend for you as you've been moving house.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to share with people a little bit about where you are and what you're, currently working on right now, about
Sure.
yourself.
Yeah. So hi everybody. My name is Chelsea. I live in Salem, Oregon. We've been living here, my husband and I, and our little daughter Naya. We've been here for 6 years now, a little over 6 years. Naya is 15 months. She is a cute thing, but very wild. Keeps us on our toes, that's for sure. Drew, my husband, works in agriculture, and I am currently a stay-at-home mom with Naya, but I have picked up a little side business where I sell books. They are mostly geared towards youth, so about kindergarten through 5th graders, but we definitely do cater towards some older kids depending on the subject matter. It's just something that I found as an easy way to make a little bit of a side income while trying to chase after my child for many hours of the day. She does not stop moving unless she's sleeping. I grew up in Hawaii with you, obviously. We spent our first 17 years of life there, and it was really a beautiful place to grow up. Definitely very different. It's not the same, just being a tourist there versus actually living there. I graduated high school, went to college in California at Chico State, and then I've kind of been all over since then. I was going to school in Northern California, then moved to Central California for a bit, then to Southern California, and now we're here in Oregon, and I want to change it for a thing. We absolutely love it.
Awesome. Yeah, we definitely share experiences. Those who've been following me in my blog for a while are like, okay, we see where you get it from. Your family just likes to move all over.
Yes, we're very nomadic.
Yeah, and maybe for those who aren't aware, so obviously Chelsea and I were raised and grew up in Hawaii. I also moved to California for some time, spent most of it in Southern California, and then moved to England for 5 years before moving to the East Coast, to New Hampshire for 2, and then now currently I'm in Ontario, in Ottawa, Canada. So we've got distance between us now, which is sometimes hard, but we're grateful to have this video option to be able to keep in touch with each other. So some questions that were coming in. So we put out a post a few days ago just to let people know we were going to have a conversation, and thought, we had questions that we were asking ourselves and talking about, and we wondered what other people were asking and whether we could integrate some of those questions into our conversation. And they really overlapped with a lot of what we were wanting to talk about anyway, so it works out really well. But some things that people were wondering is, you and I both really share a love of being outside, being out with nature, being, in spaces where we can go for long walks. We both love hiking. And I know that we both get grumpy when there's days where we can't get outside.
Yes.
And so the questions that are revolving around that is, what do we think created that? Like, why do we have this connection to the outdoors? Why do we love it so much? What fosters that love of the outdoors? So do you have any thoughts about that in your own experience?
Yeah. I just reflect back onto our childhood. I feel like, growing up in Hawaii, we were very lucky to have more days than not where we could get outdoors, and not just, our backyard as a place to be in, but we had access to beaches. If we did want to go hiking, we could. If we wanted to go see snow on top of the mountain, it was an option for us as well. So, I just think growing up where we did, that was already an introduction of being surrounded by nature. I really remember days where we would just to wake up in the morning, the first thing we want to do is just go outside, maybe, rush to breakfast because we just wanted to go play tag or go build a fort or I know our dad hated it, but make a mud bath out of a massive pile of dirt that he had delivered that he wanted to spread out throughout the backyard.
Mud pile!
Yeah. That was so much fun. I mean, there was just always something to do, and I think we were so lucky to grow up on enough land where there were just so many inches of areas to explore. There was just never a dull moment growing up and just getting to be surrounded by such beauty. So that's just really what I think what started my love of the outdoors, was just having the access to being amongst nature and just seeing some really cool things and being able to be so creative in that type of space, not really realizing that, we were kind of creating a classroom, but yeah, it wasn't four walls that was, shaping us and, our outlook on life.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I was just reflecting on, absolutely our childhood has influenced the way we are today and the amount of time that we spent outside. And yes, we were lucky to be in a climate where it allowed for that. And even the architecture in Hawaii, like our school, our whole elementary and high school, elementary, middle school and high school, we had buildings and classrooms, but you still had to walk outside to get to other classrooms or even to go to get a drink of water from the water fountain. Right. And we had experiences like the teachers would take us outside for things. I know in third grade, you took care of a garden. I remember that, Mr. Sabo's garden.
Yeah. I remember walking down those stairs.
Yeah. And so it was just like a constant, and even when we were inside, often the doors were open where we might have the screens, but it was still like you could hear the birds. We were still connected to the outside, even if we were inside. So yeah, I think leaving that and going to places where there's that disconnect has actually been hard for me. I don't know if you've experienced that challenge of like adapting to a world where people aren't as sort of integrated with indoor outdoor.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to reflect. I don't know if possibly it's just because of technology even today that is maybe really closing people's minds or just kind of closing their peripherals to what's happening around them because they're so entwined in what's happening on their phones and doing this that I think they're probably they forget to kind of stop and that saying and smell the roses because they're just not aware of what is around them. Trying to think here.
There's just more distractions. I suppose where, like our attention gets put elsewhere where we're not prompted to even notice what's outside of our little bubble sometimes. And I'm guilty of that. I spend way too much time on my phone, and I have to actively say, like, put up boundaries for myself and be like, that's enough.
Yeah, definitely.
I also have memories. I'm curious how yours maybe match or don't of, we spent a lot of time outside, and that was both at home and at school. But a lot of my memories are of our yard and spending time in our yard. And yes, our parents were around and it was safe. But my memories are of us being without parents. Or adults, us playing on our own, under the mulberry bush or, in the dirt pile, which, just to clarify for people why our dad hated it, there's really no soil in Hawaii. It's all lava rock. So in order to grow anything, you have to import soil. And so he had paid for this soil to put in plants and garden. And then we just destroyed it by playing it. But yeah, does that spark the same sort of memories for you?
I just think that we just had so much fun, and there was just, again, like I said, there's just always something to do in the backyard. As I just think about it more and reflect back on it, some of the more joyful times of being outdoors, just like getting to pick ripe avocado right there off of our tree, picking lychee, which is like a plum type fruit.
I don't know how
or jelly type fruit. I don't know how to describe lychee. But we had so many different fruits that would blossom in the yard, that we would just have access to, or, you know, figuring out who's going to climb up the coconut tree to get the coconut down, and then sitting on the driveway, cracking it open, peeling all the husk off of it, and then drinking that juice and eating the meat. It's just some really cool experiences, and it's not something that every person gets to enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. We would spend hours opening the coconuts.
Yes. And it
Just
was
really
so satisfying when we got into the middle of it.
because it was so tough to peel away the husk. It was like we would take
Yeah.
turns. I remember I would hold it in my feet,
Uh-huh.
like clamp it with my feet, and then pull the husk.
Yeah.
And it was like really a lot of effort. I remember being like, okay, I'm done. You take a turn now.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about learning teamwork and skills right there too at a young age.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we were lucky. We did live in a place where we had, a safe place to play outside.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, it's not necessarily the same these days. I mean, there's a lot more to worry about, but yeah, it's kind of cool that we were able to have a space to utilize like that, and not necessarily have adults there to tell us like, no, you can't do that, like, stop doing that, like, don't go there, stay here. There really was that sense of freedom that we were allowed to just explore without having outside perspectives telling us, this is going to happen if you do this, and not allowing us to try things out first on our own to figure out what we're capable of.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There was just the option for us to work through things
Yeah.
in our own time,
Mm-hmm.
and through our own questioning process too, and our own interests. Which I think is so, I mean, why I do the work that I do now.
Yeah.
And try to, recognizing that in the life of children and adults today, that
Yeah.
that's not understood on a big scale. It's very, we have very structured lives. It's all revolves around a calendar, around, Monday through Sunday. What are we doing each day? Routines, timelines, school schedules of timetables. It's very, very
Mm-hmm.
structured. And even what we're supposed to be doing is often
Mm-hmm.
dictated by somebody else. And
Yeah.
I think my discovery of forest school in particular as a approach to education reminded me of my experiences as a child, and knowing that innate, just allowing that time and that space for kids to interact in the way that
Mm-hmm.
they want to, and be able to just discover things at their own pace is really what fosters that love,
Right.
because you're building those relationships with it rather than analyzing it and doing a worksheet about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, another question that sort of came up was reflecting on our experiences as children, and how it's influenced us today. What role does nature and the outdoors play in your life now?
Oh, great question. Well, the fact that grew up in Hawaii and getting to explore the outdoors. My husband's a plant enthusiast and spends his time outdoors. Living here in Oregon is seriously the most ideal place for us because it just offers so many options to see the state from angles that you would never think of or dream of. So we go hiking whenever we can. It's a little bit harder now having a kid. We really have to be meticulous about how we plan that out. But we love being outdoors, whether it's hiking, going camping, if we can, trying to get out to the water, so tubing or doing jet skis or things like that, but or canoeing or kayaking. But really hiking, I think, has been one of our best ways to connect to nature and to the outdoors. We always feel so good too once we've gotten outside. It's almost like just everything that's so stressful and makes you so tense and just makes you feel like such an adult in life just always melts away after we've gone out hiking and just getting in the outdoors. You remove yourself from technology. You kind of remove yourself from people too sometimes, and it's just nice to be able to like hear your own thoughts and to just also be looking at such beautiful things while you're enjoying that, it's a good way for us to just sort of stop and press that restart button and then feel good about continuing on with, the everyday mundane tasks of routine and just living your life by alarms or by your calendars. There's no rush when you're out in nature, and that's what I think we really do enjoy when we go out hiking, is feeling like I can stop and enjoy and take my time and not be like, okay, I have to be back by this time to get to this next thing to do in life.
Yeah, I find for me, because I also need to spend a certain amount of time outside every day if I can.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I really struggle with feeling anxious, or just, I don't know, there's like this feeling where if I don't spend time outside, I'm like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And so I have to craft time in my day to do it. And I do find that there are days where I have, lists in my head of like, oh my gosh, I have all these things that I need to take care of. I don't really have time. Like, I shouldn't be going for a walk. Just even a half hour walk. Like, I could use that half hour to be doing all these, start my list and like just get through it.
Right.
But I find that when I carve out that time and say, no, I'm just prioritizing
Mm-hmm.
this first and I'll deal with everything later. By the time I come back, the list
Mm-hmm.
hasn't changed. It's
Right.
still the same length that it was, but I feel differently about it. Like, it's no
Right.
longer weighing on me or like
Mm-hmm.
chewing at me.
Yeah.
In the way it
Yeah.
was before. And I just find that so interesting to be like, the amount of stuff that I have to do hasn't changed. I just feel differently about it because I spent 30 minutes going for a walk.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I would
Yeah.
definitely. And I think that's one thing I really am enjoying about being a stay-at-home mom with Naya, is that she enjoys the outdoors just as much as I do. And now that she is getting of that age where she's very curious and wants to explore, walks are very enjoyable. She doesn't necessarily like her stroller as much because she wants to be running around. But just the fact that, she can run through the park and she can go play on the swings or just be running through the fields. It's really nice to take that part of our day and make it enjoyable, because otherwise it is very scheduled, and my days are dictated by her naps or her feedings, and I would just feel like I'm just a robot just here to fulfill these motions, and not really get anything out of it. But just taking the moments to be outside, it's really been helpful. And yeah, I think it alleviates a lot of the stresses that just come with life and being an adult, being a parent, being a wife, like just being whatever society is asking of you. It's very important, I think, for everyone's mental health, that you take time to just be outside, whether it's a 20-minute walk or a 20-mile hike, whatever floats your boat. I definitely recommend just finding a way to connect with nature and just taking in what's around you, because like you said, things are always still going to be there. The lists are always going to be there. It's just how you go about doing it is probably going to make or break just, your successes in life, and how you feel about going from one day to another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And thinking about like the importance that it plays in our lives, and the privilege that we did hold having access when we were children, and even having access now.
Mm-hmm.
I live in an urban area now, but it's an urban place that prioritizes green spaces. And so I still, can walk down my neighborhood street and end up where there's a lake and a walking trail around it, or I can walk a kilometer from here and be in a forest.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are lucky. But I'm just thinking about, questions that have been coming in on this. Access isn't available for a good portion of population, and particularly in urban areas.
Yeah.
And how do we promote, facilitate, encourage, create ways for people to access it when it's not on their doorstep? These are questions that I've been thinking about for some time now, and finding my own ways to try to answer it. But I was thinking about your family and Drew's love of plants, and even just thinking about like in your house, it's basically its own forest.
Yeah.
And that was just a thought in my head of like, you've kind of created a place for you both to connect, and Naya to connect, just in your own home. So I just wondered if you had any more thoughts around that and access.
Yeah. Good question. To think about that one. Hmm.
And maybe it's in how we think about nature too. Like that's
Yeah.
something that's been coming to mind is we often think of nature as the forest that you have to drive
Right.
to, or the 5 mile or longer hike, or the camping and canoeing in wilderness areas. And,
Right.
maybe it's about, you were talking about taking Naya to the park,
Yeah.
feeling the sunshine or even the rain, like that's
Right.
still nature, right? So maybe it's about
Yeah.
the way we think about things.
Yeah. I think, yeah. I think, if you can't necessarily get out to a decent hike, but you have a community neighborhood or maybe like a community garden, urging you to go out and spend that time with your family. Maybe take that time to disconnect from your phone too. Don't just say, okay, like this is a chore for me to take the kids out. Like maybe as a parent too, or a sibling that has to maybe take their younger siblings to the park. Like this is a time to just really put the phone down and have fun with what's going on around you. Maybe take that time to just sit and look at flowers, or sit and, like you said, feel the sunshine, or the rain, whichever feels the best for you. But I think maybe it's up one to enjoying nature is just maybe putting your phone down for a little bit and really just seeing what it is that's surrounding you, um, and looking at stuff. Don't just look at something and take an Instagram picture and then put it back down.
Which we're all guilty of.
But yes, I'm probably not one to talk, but I think that's probably where I would say is like a good way to start, is just put that phone down for a bit and just really observe what's around you, and feel that breeze on your skin. And
Yeah.
nature's for everybody. It's not for a certain person. It's for everyone.
Yeah, we all need it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So another thing we wanted to get to was thinking about, because another thing we have in common is our promotion of storytelling, in different forms. I've been really into storytelling for a few years now, and finally got the confidence to do oral storytelling where you're not reading from a book, and have been practicing that and making up my own stories. And I know that I see it as a form of, storytelling as being really powerful for creating connection. In my work, that's, connection to the outdoors, but there's just so much. I always say stories hold power.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also, the business that you're running right now is around stories. And I know it's around children's books, and the stories that come in those books. And so, yeah, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about the significance of stories and storytelling, and in your own life, or also thinking about, with Naya, having a child.
Yeah.
What's the significance of stories to you?
Yeah. I think for me, storytelling is a way to connect with other people. It's a way to maybe open up the field for conversations, whereas it might not be uncomfortable topics. It may make it easier to have those conversations based on things like that, when you maybe have some visuals, or other people can share experiences that you can relate to. I think that those will open the gateways for conversations. And I think it also then creates realms of creativity and realms of exploration. I think it opens up a lot for people to look at different avenues of talking. And storytelling is not just black and white. There's a lot of angles to it. I think for me, storytelling with Naya, not necessarily make up stories with her, but we just, reading stories to her is a really great way for us to just kind of wind down for the evenings. One thing I've noticed lately is just, I think it's really fun, is that she's starting to like grab books on her own and is wanting to just, not that she can read or anything like that, but just like flipping through it and just getting a feel for, what books are, has been really important to me for her development, and just watching her little curious mind grow. But yeah, I think storytelling is it's just an important way to, what I want to say here. I think it's just an important way to again, just to work through conversations and to maybe understand too what's going on around us so that we can be more accepting, be more understanding, and maybe be more educated about just topics that are real and yeah, I think that's it. Just being able to talk about things that are real, and just having more sense of comfort in exploring those avenues.
Yeah, like stories are a way for us to peek into the experiences of others.
Yes.
By having in books as well as even just this conversation, we're telling stories,
Mm-hmm. Right.
technically. But yeah, listening to other stories is a way to be able to take a peek into how they experience the world, and how
Mm-hmm.
that can be different from the way we experience the world. And just knowing that,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, not everybody experiences the world in the same way as I do, can bring
Yeah.
about tolerance, empathy, all those pieces that help us to create communities that support and understand each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I've been sharing some information around place-based and inclusive storytelling. These are just some themes and thoughts that I've been having, and resources that I've been working with others to create and bring together, and thinking about inclusion. Like, what does inclusion even mean? And then
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean for our stories? And these are big questions I'm not claiming to be able to answer,
Right.
but just thoughts that I've been having around what can I do with my stories. Because often the stories that we tell, particularly in books, but new books come out all the time as well, but in sort of traditional stories, it reflects the values and the times of generations before.
Right.
And how do we adapt to the way that we are now and the way that we want to be for the
Mm-hmm.
future, and thinking about the characters in our stories and who they are and who they represent, and who's listening to the stories, and who are they visualizing or seeing on the pages of the book as being represented as the main character. Who's the hero? Who's the villain? And what do they look like, and how do you identify with them, or how are they being portrayed? These are just like all the questions that when you start to dissect the stories that we maybe sometimes even take for granted, that we just share without thinking of what they're really portraying.
Right.
Um, so yeah, like, I don't know if you have thoughts on your own, like, within the stories that you, in the books that you share, and even in the books that you get for Naya, like, what's
Mm-hmm.
important to you in terms of feeling inclusive, or that term of how to share a wide variety of experiences within stories.
Yeah. It really, to be honest, I hadn't really put a lot of thought into that, probably until a lot of what's going on in the world now with the protesting and just the way that people of color are being treated or mistreated. So like I I try to find books that are along the lines of female or woman empowerment, or books that do have characters of color that represent all walks of life, just because, or I mean, a lot of the books now that we are sharing with Naya are education, so we're, colors, numbers, letters, and things like that. But yeah, I think it is important that books that we show her represent a lot of diversity, and that it's not just one character, that typical, male character being this, the female, being the in need for help, and here comes a man to rescue her. I really do want to find books that show strong female leads, that represent individuals of different color and walks of life, and then also show different perspectives. I think that as she gets older, I will start being more so intentional with the books that we give to her, just because if she does start asking questions, I want to be able to have those conversations with her, and for her to feel that, you know, she is also being represented in stories and is not just saying, well, why don't I look like that person, you know, or why, like, should I be doing this? You know, but I don't have this kind of hair, or I don't have this kind of skin color. And I want her to be very much okay with who she is, and to realize that it's okay to be individual, and, you know, that not all stories have that setup of, you know, that you should do X, Y, and Z and look like X, Y, and Z. You know, there's no mold that she needs to fit into.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I also just reflect on our experiences growing up together. You know, we have quite a unique family. And a lot of people ask questions of like, how are we even sisters?
Right.
And I sort of deliberately like don't even want to share that with people because why does
Yeah.
it I don't know. Does it matter is a question that I'm
Right.
asking. And yes, it does in so many words, but at the same time, I don't want to put the focus on that.
Right.
You know, and we grew up knowing we looked different and
Mm-hmm.
having different body experiences, different types of hair, you
Mm-hmm.
know, different ways of dealing with that. And yeah, and also different interactions. Like people would
Right.
interact with us differently because we looked
Mm-hmm.
different. And
Right.
I feel like we got an education on that from day one
Yeah.
compared to a lot of people because it was right there in front of us. Like, yeah, we both experience the world differently, even though we're in the
Mm-hmm.
same family. I mean,
Right.
I was born with you already being my sister.
Yeah.
Um, so we've been in the same family unit our whole lives, and yet
Yeah.
the way we experience the world and the way people interact with us is different just purely because of the way that we look. Um,
Yeah.
and I always think about that as like we were told a story our whole lives that
Mm-hmm.
we were sisters.
Yeah.
And we knew it wasn't hidden from us of how that had come to be, but still, like, we were still sisters, we were twins.
Right. I know. That's yes. My favorite thing is like people's reactions when I tell them, "Oh, yeah, we're only 8 months apart." They're like trying to like,
We're
wait,
like,
how does that work?
yeah. Yeah. And even the fact that like we did take that to heart and we would wear the same clothes.
Right. Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
would match our clothes so that we did, you know, we were twins.
Right.
Yeah. And how challenging that is for people to understand why or how that works.
Right.
Yeah. So that, I think that tells in and of itself the culture that we live in and what's accepted and
Mhm.
what's not accepted. And, you know, how can we reframe the way we interact with people, and talk about these relationships so that um, it can feel normalized, I suppose, that
Right.
we can all be in good relationship with each other.
But yeah, or that it's not like people don't need to do like a second take
Mm-hmm.
with, you know, like, oh, did I hear that right? Or like, what am I seeing here? Like, yeah, it just, you know, I think that will always, you know, when we're out in public, there will always be those people who were looking like, why is that black person with that white family? Or, you know, I'll be experiencing this too, having married a white male and having a mixed race daughter who is, I mean, she's black, but she's fairly light skinned. So, yeah, it'll always be a story that I'll have to tell, and, you know, a story that she'll have to tell. And, but, you know, it's one that I think growing up, it was maybe I was like almost shameful, like maybe there was a sense of shame that I had, or it was just like, like here I go, I have to explain this again to someone. But, you know, I think where I really want to make better choices for my child and any future children that I have is that I want them to be proud of, you know, who they are, what they look like, where they came from. You know, there should never be any sort of faltering in their stories or their voices or feeling apprehension to have to respond to anyone. You know, it's just that we're all human, we're all here, we're just, our stories are just going to be looking a little bit different than, like you said, the stories of our forefathers, just because so much change has happened in life. And, you know, it's all changed for the best. It's nothing that we should be sad about.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's good to be able to have these conversations because I wonder whether I would have even felt comfortable having this conversation
Right.
a year
Yeah.
ago, even 6 months ago or less. So
Yeah.
it's about time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to give the opportunity for you to share a little bit more about your business with people so that they know how they might be able to support it. I know you brought some example books with you, and if you
Yeah.
wanted to take some time to tell us a little bit more about what you're doing and what books you have.
Awesome. Yeah. So I work for actually it's a UK based company, Usborne Books and More. They are some really fantastic books. They're engaging, they're interactive, they're educational. I mean, they're just so fun. I mean, some of the books that I've gotten, I'm like, is this really for Naya? Is this for me? Because I want to play with this or read this. But they're really fantastic. The titles are also very affordable. Most of their titles are less than $10, which is super fantastic. So you're not going to be breaking the bank. It's been shown in research that families who have at least 500 books or more are going to be really boosting brain power and confidence, and it's a great way for families to come together, reading stories and sharing that excitement and journey into creativity and into different worlds or into education. And it just makes reading a lot more fun with a lot of the titles that Usborne offers. So it's been a fun journey to jump into that. I've gotten to meet some great people through it. Naya's gotten some wonderful books through it, and I just can't wait to see her continue growing with them. So I'm going to flip the camera around real quick, and I will just kind of show you some of these titles that we got. Kind of got some nature-based books since you're a nature-based girl. So we got this really fun one, this Bug Home. So as you go through it, it's just little flaps that pop down. So again, it just makes reading more fun, learning new facts for kids a lot more interesting and fun. This Bug Hotel book, super cool. Again, educational, but we got all the flaps for learning little facts about bees. One of my favorites that I just borrowed, sorry, it's kind of a little mess out here with my makeshift workstation since we just moved. I thought this one would be super fun. Yoga Animals. So this is super cool. I wish that I had known about this book when I was working at the Boys and Girls Club. It's just a little educational book that shows different yoga poses, but when I was at the Boys and Girls Club, the kids would have loved this. It was a really great way to do calming activities with the kids. And I just saw a lot of more positive behaviors when I got to do yoga with the kids. So that was really nice. And then just a few of these other titles that are good is they're inclusive. Here we got some books that are going to show more diversity. We're going to see individuals that represent all walks of life. We're also learning about different places around the world. So these titles are just a great way to, again, educate and just make those conversations and, make those questions that kids ask more exciting to talk about. And you won't be stumbling over your words because you have the visuals to represent to the kids, like, hey, yeah, that person doesn't look like you, but this is why. So yeah, so that's just kind of a little synopsis of a few of the great titles that Usborne has to offer. So I'm going to try to flip the camera around again.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you for sharing those. It's always good to know what resources are out there for people to be able to widen their libraries and share what stories are out there.
Yeah, I'm very excited now that we've moved to actually start building up Naya's library even more now.
Yeah, and I love how some of them, it seems like they're really good stories that kids can just immerse themselves in on their own. Like obviously reading to children is super important and valuable, and having that experience together, but also for them to be able to pull it off the shelf and be able to do the flipping and the flapping and
Yeah.
and work through it themselves must be exciting for them.
Yeah. Except if you're my child, you like to take books and then rip the flaps out when mom's not looking.
I'm sure there are many parents out there who can relate.
Yeah. But that's also the great thing about this Usborne books is that we do have some like little more like indestructible type books, so that for those younger kids they can't pull them apart.
Perfect. So if people want to learn more about how to get their hands on these books and also to get in touch with you and just maybe follow along with your journey and your business, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, I use Facebook and Instagram more often. So for my Instagram, my handle would be look.ina.book. And then my Facebook page is Chelsea's Book Nook. So both those pages have links to the shopping pages where you can explore. You can also reach out to me, and if you tell me your interests, I'm always happy to build a wish list for you so you don't have to do the work yourself. And then I can pull those titles for you, and you can then peruse that wish list, again, based off of what your interests are. And so either way, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has just about books, and I'm here to get them into readers' hands, to get kids' brains going, especially with the day that we're living in, with schools possibly not opening back up. It's a great way to get educational books into parents' hands and maybe take some of that stress off of not only wearing the parent cap, but now having to be a teacher for the upcoming school year.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, fantastic. Yeah, I hope people look into what you're doing and follow along and find out more. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with people before we say goodbye for today?
Yeah. Just, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it. And just, if you can, wherever you are at in life, if you just find ways to connect with nature, whether that's getting outside, sitting in the park, going for a walk, swimming, whatever it is that you can do, just I really encourage everyone to get out there. Nature is not for those who have easy access to it. It's for everyone. Sometimes it is a little bit harder to find that, but I really encourage people to find ways to get outdoors, put your phones down for a little bit, and just connect with your family and just find ways to enjoy what's around you. Just with the world changing and things kind of looking a little grim and frustrating, I think that going into nature is a way to hit that reset button and to maybe find some positives when there's just a lot of darkness going on in the world.
Yeah, true. Well, thank you so much for all of that, and thank you for being a role model as well for others and for Naya. It's very inspiring,
Thank
and
you.
again, grateful for you taking the time out on such a busy weekend.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Bring it on.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to be able to share a little bit more about my family with the Forest Schooled community, and be able to, yeah, just show like this is a little bit more about me and the wonderful people that I get to hang out with.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it from us, and I'll just stop recording and we'll say goodbye to people. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.